Hi, this is Jessica Vozel for Herald-Standard.com, and I am in my hometown of Perryopolis at Washington's Grist Mill. This weekend, Perryopolis will have its annual Pioneer Days Festival, which celebrates the storied history of Perryopolis. And every town has its myths, and Perryopolis certainly is no exception to that. I grew up hearing many different myths about the history of this town, Washington's role in the town, and only recently I decided to investigate, sort of see what truth lies behind those myths. The first one is that Washington, when he first set his sights on Perryopolis, wrote in his journal that it was a rich place, perfect for a mill, one of the most beautiful places he'd ever seen, and we hear that quote quite a bit here in Perryopolis. I found out that although he did build this grist mill here along with his partner named Simpson, after a while he started to see that it wasn't so idyllic. He talked about how it was rocky and maybe not as great as he thought, but we don't really talk about that second part very often. And probably the most pervasive of all of the myths I've heard of Perryopolis growing up is that Perryopolis was slated to be the capital of the United States, and then something or other happened and it fell through. No. At the time, Washington was told to pick the location of the capital, and he threw out about 8 different possible locations, all of them on his land, that 52,000 acres that he owns. And Perryopolis very well might have been one of those 8, not really confirmed. It might have been. So there's a little bit of truth there, but not quite that, we just narrowly missed being the capital. But that's a myth that always fascinated me and one I wanted to learn more about. So I spoke with Ruthie Shields. She's the town historian of Perryopolis, and we talked about what it would be like if Perryopolis had been the capital of the United States. All right, Ruthie, so I'm curious, I've heard this myth about Perryopolis being slated to be the capital of the United States at one point, and I just want to hear a little bit about that myth and the truth behind it.
Well, as far as I understand, Congress gave him permission to pick the site of the capital. And he had so many holdings from Mount Vernon to Ohio that he kind of thought he'd put it on one of his own properties. So there's also a town in West Virginia that makes the same claim that Washington had decided to put the capital there. Apparently Washington had picked so many different places and jumped around that Congress finally said it has to be on the Potomac, somewhere here. So that's why it didn't turn out that we're capital.
Okay, so last question. Why do you think this myth persists? Because I think we've probably all heard it at one point or another. Why does it persist? Why do we hold on to this idea that Perryopolis could have been the capital?
Well, I think it's like bragging rights for one thing. But, when you live in a town that's got a historic background, and your family has talked about it all your life. And my mother was a school teacher, and so she always pointed out, she'd drive me down by the mill and say, now you see that chimney? George Washington owned this property and had that mill built there. And she was proud of it. So you grow up in this little tiny town, and then you go out into the world, the college or wherever, and they say, where are you from? And you say, Perryopolis. And they go, yep. Oh, the airport. I said, no, that's Pittsburgh, but you're thinking Perryopolis. Yep. Nobody knows we exist. They don't know we're alive, and they don't care. And so we just, but George Washington owned the whole property. He had a mill built there, and he did, he was going to make it the nation's capital. And everybody else says, okay. But it's something for us to be proud of, and so we just hold on to it for whatever reason. Yeah.
So even though these myths only have a little undercurrent of truth to them, as a native of Perryopolis, I'm going to hold on to them anyway. For Herald-Standard.com, I'm Jessica Vozel.